In 1887, Coyote Gulch, Minnesota was a Pine Valley settlement with one church, one saloon, and a stubborn community that refused to die even when nature tried its best to kill it. Beatrice McKenzie wiped down the bar top for the third time that morning, her green eyes fixed on the window, where snow fell so thick she could barely see across the street to the church. The floods 2 weeks back had washed out every bridge within 20 miles, and now the cold snap was killing cattle faster than ranchers could count the losses. Travelers were stuck here. Tempers were rising, and her saloon was the only warm place left, where people could gather without praying. She needed this place to survive because it was all she had, and Huxley Sutton knew it.
Miss McKenzie.
The voice came from the doorway, steady and low. Caleb Carson stepped inside, shaking snow from his dark wool coat, his medical bag in one hand. His blue eyes met hers with that quiet intensity she had learned to recognize over the past 6 months since he arrived in Coyote Gulch.
I need to borrow your back room. The Henderson's boy took a fall through the ice. His leg is broken bad.
Take it.
Beatrice moved around the bar without hesitation.
I will get water heating.
She did not ask if the boy would live. Caleb Carson did not make promises he could not keep, and she respected that about him. She had heard the story from old Martha Pike, how the doctor had knelt at a grave somewhere in Dakota Territory and sworn an oath to the dead that he would use his skills to save lives, no matter the cost to himself. Beatrice did not believe in many things anymore, but she believed Caleb Carson meant every word of whatever promise he had made. 2 hours later, the boy was stable and sleeping off the laudanum. Caleb washed his hands in the basin Beatrice brought him, his shoulders tight with exhaustion.
He will keep the leg if infection does not set in.
You did good work.
Beatrice set down a plate of bread and cold venison.
Eat something before you go back out there.
I am not sure I will make it back out there today.
Caleb glanced at the window where twilight was already gathering, despite the early hour.
This cold is dangerous.
Then stay.
Beatrice said it before she could think better of it.
I have rooms upstairs. Empty ones. You can take your pick.
Caleb looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his blue eyes.
I appreciate that.
He did not smile, but his voice carried warmth she felt in her chest.
Thank you, Beatrice.
It was the first time he had used her given name, and she felt her face heat despite the cold. She turned away quickly, busying herself with clearing the medical supplies.
It is nothing. Just practical.
But it was not nothing, and they both knew it. The door to the saloon banged open, bringing a gust of frigid air and 3 men stamping snow from their boots. Beatrice recognized them immediately. Sutton's crew. The one in front was Vic Landry, a tight-lipped man who never smiled and always needed to have the last word in any conversation. Landry crossed to the bar, his pale eyes scanning the room before settling on Beatrice. He spoke in a flat tone, conveying a message he had clearly memorized. Mr. Sutton wanted to remind her that the property taxes were coming due in 2 weeks, and he was prepared to make her a generous offer if she wished to avoid the burden of payment. Beatrice felt her anger rise hot and fast.
You can tell Mr. Sutton that I will pay my own taxes and keep my own property.
Landry's mouth tightened. He informed her that Sutton was merely being neighborly, and that the offer would not stand forever.
Good. Then he can stop wasting his time and mine.
Beatrice leaned forward on the bar, her voice dropping to a tone that made the other patrons glance over nervously.
This saloon belonged to my father. And now, it belongs to me. Huxley Sutton is not getting his hands on it no matter how many times he sends you boys to threaten me.
Landry's eyes narrowed. He suggested she might want to reconsider, given the difficulties facing the town. Businesses were failing. People were leaving. She might find herself without customers soon enough.
She said, "No."
Caleb's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He stood in the doorway to the back room, arms crossed, his steady gaze fixed on Landry.
"That means the conversation is over."
Landry turned his attention to Caleb, sizing him up. After a moment, he gave a thin smile and said something about the doctor being new in town and not understanding how things worked in Kaidi Gulch.
"I understand that a woman said no, and you are still standing in her establishment."
Caleb took one step forward.
"That is all I need to understand."
Landry held Caleb's gaze for 3 long seconds, then turned and walked out, his 2 companions following without a word. The door slammed behind them. Beatrice released a breath she had not realized she was holding.
You did not have to do that.
"Yes, I did."
Caleb moved back to the bar, his expression unchanged.
"Sutton has been pressuring you for months, hasn't he?"
Since my father died last spring.
Beatrice wiped at the bar again, though it was already clean.
Huxley Sutton is my uncle, my father's half-brother. He has always believed this place should have gone to him instead of me.
"Does he have any legal claim?"
None. The deed is in my name, free and clear.
Beatrice's jaw tightened.
But Huxley owns the mine outside town and half the businesses on this street. He has money and connections. If he wants something, he usually finds a way to take it.
That night, Beatrice lay awake in her room above the saloon, listening to the wind howl and the timbers creak under the weight of snow and cold. She thought about her father, about the way he had built this place with his own hands and refused to sell, even when times got hard. She thought about Huxley, who had stood at the funeral with dry eyes and made his first offer to buy the saloon before her father was even in the ground. And she thought about Caleb Carson, asleep in the room down the hall, who had stepped between her and danger without hesitation. She did not need a man to protect her, but it had felt good not to stand alone. The next morning brought news that made everything worse. The telegraph operator, a nervous young man named Peter Wells, came into the saloon just after dawn, clutching a yellow paper in his shaking hand. He explained that the telegram had arrived 3 days ago, but got buried under other messages during the chaos of the flood and the cold. It was addressed to Beatrice's father, sent from a lawyer in St. Paul. Beatrice took the telegram with numb fingers and read it twice before the words made sense. The telegram stated that an investigation into mining records had uncovered evidence that Huxley Sutton had used forged deeds to claim mineral rights on land belonging to several property owners in Coyote Gulch, including the lot where Beatrice's saloon stood. The lawyer requested an immediate meeting to discuss legal action. The telegram was dated 2 weeks before her father's death.
He knew.
Beatrice's voice came out flat and cold.
My father knew Huxley was a fraud and a thief. That is why Huxley has been so desperate to get this property. If I still own it when the truth comes out, he loses everything.
"This changes things."
Caleb stood beside her, reading the telegram again.
"If Sutton knows this telegram exists, you are in danger."
Huxley does not know. The operator just said it got buried.
Beatrice looked up at Peter Wells, who nodded frantically and insisted he had told no one.
Then we have an advantage.
"Or a target on your back, the moment he finds out.
Caleb's voice was grim.
This is not just about property anymore, Beatrice. This is about covering up a crime. Men like Sutton do not stop at threats when their necks are on the line.
He was right, and Beatrice knew it. But she also knew she could not run.
I am not leaving. This is my home.
I am not asking you to leave.
Caleb met her eyes, and she saw something fierce and protective there that made her heart beat faster.
I am telling you that if Sutton comes for you, he will have to go through me first.
Beatrice opened her mouth to argue, to tell him she did not need protection, but the words died in her throat. Because the truth was, she did not want to face this alone, and Caleb Carson, with his steady hands and his graveside promise, and his quiet intensity, was the only person in Coyote Gulch she trusted completely.
Why?
She asked it softly.
Why would you risk yourself for me?
Because I made a promise once to use my skills to save lives.
Caleb's voice was low and rough.
And because you are not just another patient to me, Beatrice. You have not been for a long time.
The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Beatrice felt her pulse hammer in her throat. Before she could respond, the door crashed open, and Vic Landry strode in with 4 other men behind him. Landry's gaze went straight to the telegram in Beatrice's hand, and his expression went cold and hard. He informed her that Mr. Sutton required her presence immediately at the mine office to discuss urgent business regarding her property.
I am not going anywhere with you.
Beatrice crumpled the telegram and shoved it into her dress pocket.
You can tell Huxley that if he wants to talk, he can come here.
Landry took a step forward. He said this was not a request.
She said, "No."
Caleb moved to stand between Landry and Beatrice. His body language deceptively casual, but his eyes sharp as broken glass.
That means you leave. Now.
Landry's hand moved toward his coat, and suddenly every man in the room was tense and ready for violence. But Landry was not stupid. He glanced at the other patrons in the saloon, men who had known Beatrice's father and were watching with hostile eyes. He knew he was outnumbered. Landry said that Sutton would not forget this insult, then turned and left, his men trailing after him like wolves slinking away from a fight they could not win. Beatrice sagged against the bar once they were gone.
He knows about the telegram.
He suspects.
Caleb corrected.
But he does not have proof. We need to get this to the authorities in St. Paul before Sutton makes his move.
The bridges are out. The roads are frozen.
Beatrice shook her head.
No one is getting to St. Paul until the thaw, and that could be weeks.
Then, we hold the line here.
Caleb's jaw set with determination.
We keep you safe, and we keep that telegram safe until help can arrive.
Huxley will not wait weeks.
Beatrice looked at Caleb, fear and gratitude warring in her chest.
He will come for me tonight. Maybe sooner.
Let him come.
Caleb reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and solid.
I am not letting anything happen to you, Beatrice. I swear it.
And there it was again. That promise. That oath, given with the same gravity he must have used at that graveside in Dakota. Beatrice believed him. The attack came at dusk. Beatrice was upstairs securing the deed and the telegram in a metal lockbox when she heard men shouting in the street. She ran to the window and saw torches, 6 of them, moving toward the saloon through the snow. Huxley Sutton led them, his face set and grim. Beside him walked Landry and 4 others she recognized as mine workers. Caleb was already at the door when she came downstairs, his medical bag abandoned on a table, a rifle in his hands.
Get to the back room. Bar the door.
This is my fight.
Beatrice grabbed the shotgun her father had kept behind the bar.
I am not hiding.
Beatrice, seeing Warner flyer, one thress, or were cless down. The warm the wind stas but that for year and luch coims. There were the nuft, with a lust lod spark. Beatrice, and to the waist bone frest in the teaching nine ties. The head had powered flyer. I called it fire, but my finely was pay for a Christ it's walking.
I am not hiding.
She repeated it with steel in her voice, and Caleb looked at her for one long moment before nodding.
Then, we stand together.
Huxley Sutton stopped 10 feet from the saloon steps. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of authority he thought he deserved. He told Beatrice this had gone on long enough. She would hand over the telegram and sign the deed to the saloon over to him, or he would burn the place down with her inside it.
You killed him.
Beatrice's voice rang out clear and hard.
You killed my father, did you not, Huxley? That is what this is really about. He found out about the forged deeds, and you killed him to keep him quiet.
The men behind Huxley shifted uneasily. Sutton's face darkened. He insisted her father died of natural causes, a heart failure, as everyone knew.
Convenient timing.
Beatrice stepped forward, the shotgun steady in her hands.
1 week after he learned you were a thief and a fraud. 1 week before he could report you to the law.
Huxley's composure cracked. He snarled that she had no proof, that she was a hysterical woman making wild accusations.
I have the telegram. I have the lawyer's name. I have everything I need to see you hanged.
Huxley's hand moved toward his coat, and Landry and 2 others drew pistols.
Don't.
Caleb's voice was cold as the air around them, the rifle aimed steady at Huxley's chest.
You fire one shot, and this whole town will come running. You might get us, but you will not walk away clean.
For a moment, no one moved. The wind howled. Snow fell in thick curtains. Then the church bell began to ring, urgent and loud, and doors started opening up and down the street. The pastor appeared first, then families. Then the men who had been drinking in the saloon earlier. They came with lanterns and rifles, forming a line between the saloon and Sutton's crew. The pastor, an old man named Reverend Cole, stepped forward and addressed Huxley directly. He said the town had tolerated Sutton's threats and bullying for too long, and whatever business he had with Beatrice Mackenzie could wait until the law arrived. If Sutton wanted to burn down the saloon, he would have to burn down the whole town first. Huxley looked at the faces arrayed against him, at the guns and the resolve, and he knew he had lost. He told Landry to stand down. Landry hesitated, clearly wanting the last word, but Huxley snapped at him to obey. The men lowered their weapons. Huxley looked at Beatrice with pure hatred. He said this was not over, that she had made a powerful enemy.
No.
Beatrice's voice was calm now, steady.
This is over. You are finished, Huxley. The moment the thaw comes, that telegram goes to St. Paul, and the law comes for you. You can run. Or you can wait here and face justice. Your choice.
Huxley turned and walked away into the snow, his men following. The townspeople stood watch until the torches disappeared into the darkness, then slowly dispersed, offering Beatrice nods and quiet words of support. Caleb lowered the rifle, his shoulders finally relaxing.
You did it.
We did it.
Beatrice set the shotgun down, her hands shaking now that the danger had passed.
I could not have stood against him alone.
You are never alone, Beatrice.
Caleb stepped closer, his blue eyes searching hers.
Not as long as I am here.
The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not tears of fear or grief. They were something else entirely.
Why did you really come to Coyote Gulch, Caleb?
Because I made a promise at a graveside.
Caleb's voice was soft now, almost tender.
My wife died 2 years ago. Cholera. I was a doctor, and I could not save her. I knelt at her grave and swore I would never let someone die if I had the power to prevent it. I have been moving from town to town ever since, going wherever I was needed.
He reached up and touched Beatrice's face, his hand gentle.
But I never planned to stay anywhere. Not until I met you.
Caleb.
I know you do not need saving, Beatrice.
Caleb's thumb brushed her cheek.
You are the strongest woman I have ever met. But maybe we can save each other.
Beatrice felt her heart crack open. She had been so determined to prove she could run the saloon alone, to show the world she did not need anyone. But standing here with Caleb, she realized that needing someone and surrendering yourself were not the same thing.
I am not giving up this place.
I would never ask you to.
And I am not changing who I am.
I would not want you to.
Caleb smiled, a rare, genuine smile that transformed his serious face.
I fell in love with a woman who threatens men with shotguns and runs a saloon with an iron will. Why would I want her to be anyone else?
Beatrice laughed, the sound breaking through the tension of the last terrible hours.
You are a fool, Caleb Carson.
Probably.
He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers.
But I am your fool, if you will have me.
Beatrice closed the distance between them and kissed him, fierce and sure. Caleb's arms came around her, holding her close, and for the first time since her father died, Beatrice felt safe. Not because a man was protecting her, but because she had found someone who saw her strength and loved her for it. When they finally pulled apart, the snow was still falling. The wind was still howling, but the world felt warmer.
Stay.
Beatrice said it simply.
Not just tonight. Stay in Coyote Gulch. With me.
Yes.
Caleb did not hesitate.
I will stay as long as you want me.
Forever might be a good start.
Forever it is.
They stood there on the saloon steps, holding each other against the cold. And when Reverend Cole walked past on his way back to the church, he smiled and tipped his hat. 3 days later, a rider managed to get through to St. Paul with a telegram and a letter from Beatrice detailing everything she knew about Huxley Sutton's crimes. Huxley tried to run, but the cold and the snow trapped him just as surely as it had trapped everyone else in Coyote Gulch. When the federal marshals arrived a week after the thaw, they found him holed up in his mine office, surrounded by forged documents he had been trying to burn. Landry and 2 others turned witness against him in exchange for lighter sentences. The trial was swift and brutal. Evidence of the forged deeds was overwhelming, and when the coroner re-examined Beatrice's father's body, they found traces of poison that had been missed the first time. Huxley Sutton was sentenced to hang, Beatrice did not attend the execution. She was too busy running her saloon, which had become more popular than ever now, that the town knew she had stood up to the most powerful man in the region and won. Caleb set up a permanent practice in a room off the saloon's back hall. He treated broken bones and fevers, delivered babies and set stitches. And every night, he came upstairs to the room he now shared with Beatrice. They were married in the spring, a simple ceremony in the church across the street with the whole town in attendance. Beatrice wore a cream-colored dress, and Caleb wore his best suit. And when the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, the cheers could be heard all the way to the river. That evening, after the celebrations died down and the guests went home, Caleb and Beatrice walked down to the riverbank. The ice had broken up, and the water flowed free and clear, reflecting the last light of the sunset.
Do you regret it?
Caleb asked quietly.
Staying here instead of starting fresh somewhere else?
Not for 1 second.
Beatrice leaned into him, feeling his warmth and strength.
This is my home. You are my home.
I never thought I would have this again.
Caleb's voice was rough with emotion.
A home. A partner. A reason to stay.
You kept your promise.
Beatrice looked up at him.
You saved a life. Mine.
You saved mine too.
He kissed her softly, thoroughly, and when they pulled apart, the sun had set and the stars were coming out, bright and cold and perfect. They stood there together at the riverbank, with the town behind them. The saloon lit up warm and welcoming, the church standing quiet and watchful. Beatrice thought about her father, about his stubborn refusal to give up, and she knew he would be proud of her. She had kept his legacy alive. She had protected their home. And she had found love without surrendering 1 inch of who she was.
Come on.
Beatrice took Caleb's hand and tugged him back toward the town.
We have a saloon to run and a life to live.
Yes, ma'am.
Caleb grinned, that rare, beautiful smile that still made her heart skip.
Whatever you say.
They walked back together through the gathering darkness. 2 people who had found each other in the middle of a brutal winter and decided to build a future together. The saloon doors were open. The lamps were lit. And inside, their life was waiting. Inside the saloon, Beatrice poured them each a small glass of whiskey. She raised hers in a toast.
To surviving the winter.
To surviving Huxley Sutton.
Caleb clinked his glass against hers.
To finding each other.
To staying together.
They drank, the whiskey burning warm down Beatrice's throat. She set her glass down and looked around the saloon, at the bar her father had built, at the walls that had sheltered her through the worst months of her life, at the man standing beside her, who had become her partner in every sense of the word.
You know, I never thanked you properly.
For what?
For standing with me. For believing me. For not trying to take over or tell me what to do.
Beatrice smiled.
For seeing me as an equal.
You are more than my equal, Beatrice.
Caleb pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist.
You are the bravest person I have ever known.
Flatterer.
Truth teller.
He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips.
I love you. I will love you until the day I die. And I will never, ever try to change you.
Good.
Beatrice laughed, her joy bubbling up irrepressible and bright.
Because I am not changing for anyone.
I would not dream of asking.
They swayed together in the lamplight, the saloon empty and quiet around them. And Beatrice felt a peace she had not known in years. The winter was over. The danger had passed. And the future stretched out before them, full of possibility and promise. Later that night, they climbed the stairs to their room, Beatrice's wedding dress rustling softly, Caleb's hand warm and steady in hers. The window was open, letting in the cool spring air and the sound of the river flowing free. Beatrice stood at the window, looking out at the town, at the church and the few scattered buildings, at the pine trees dark against the starlit sky.
I am glad you stayed.
I am glad you let me.
Caleb came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder.
This is where I belong. With you.
With me.
Beatrice turned in his arms, her green eyes meeting his blue ones.
Forever.
Forever.
They kissed again, slow and deep. And when they finally pulled apart, Beatrice was smiling.
Come to bed, Dr. Carson.
Yes, Mrs. Carson.
The name felt strange and wonderful on her tongue. She was still Beatrice Mackenzie to the town, still the saloon owner who had faced down a corrupt baron and won. But she was also Beatrice Carson now, wife and partner and equal. She had not surrendered herself. She had expanded herself, and that made all the difference. They climbed into bed together, the quilts soft and warm, the night quiet around them. Caleb held her close, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear.
I love you, Beatrice.
I love you too, Caleb.
And then, there were no more words, just the warmth of their bodies pressed together, the comfort of knowing they had found something rare and precious in the harsh, wild world. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead. The river flowed. The town slept. And in the saloon above the bar, two people who had survived a brutal winter held each other and dreamed of spring. Morning came soft and golden, sunlight streaming through the window, birdsong in the pine trees. Beatrice woke wrapped in Caleb's arms, his breathing slow and even. She lay still for a moment, savoring the peace, the safety, the love. Then she slipped carefully out of bed and dressed quietly, leaving Caleb to sleep. She went downstairs to the saloon and started the coffee, the familiar routine grounding her. The bar needed wiping down. The glasses needed washing. There were deliveries to arrange and accounts to balance. She was a businesswoman, a saloon owner, a survivor, and now, a wife. She smiled at that, at the way her life had changed and stayed the same all at once. She heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Caleb descending, his hair rumpled, his shirt half-buttoned, a sleepy smile on his face.
Morning.
Morning.
Beatrice poured him a cup of coffee.
Sleep well?
Better than I have in years.
Caleb took the coffee and leaned against the bar, his eyes warm.
You? I came the warned runs and directing. One soffer said, supported to less at the time. You're the wind stress but that 4-year in Ludge coins. You were there lawns when the lost lods mark Pogen. And stress.
Same.
She moved around the bar to stand beside him, shoulder to shoulder, looking out at the saloon that was her kingdom and her burden and her pride.
Ready for another day?
With you?
Caleb set down his coffee and took her hand.
Always.
They stood together in the morning light, partners in every way that mattered. ready to face whatever came next. Because they had survived the flood, and the cold, and the corruption, and the violence. They had stood together when the world tried to tear them apart, and they had chosen each other, freely and fiercely, without surrendering an inch of who they were. That afternoon, Caleb saw patients in his makeshift office, while Beatrice managed the saloon. A few travelers who had been trapped by the floods finally made it through and stopped for food and drink. They brought news from St. Paul, from the surrounding settlements, stories of the hard winter and the slow thaw. One of them, an older man with kind eyes, told Beatrice he had heard about her stand against Huxley Sutton. He said she was becoming something of a legend in the territory, a woman who had faced down a powerful man and won. Beatrice laughed and shook her head.
I am just a saloon owner trying to keep my business.
But the man insisted she was more than that. She was proof that the little people could stand up to corruption and win. She was hope. Beatrice did not know what to say to that, so she just thanked him and poured him another drink on the house. Later, when the saloon was quiet and Caleb had finished with his last patient, they sat together at a corner table and shared a simple dinner of bread and stew.
That man today, the one who called you a legend, he was not wrong.
I am not a legend. I am just stubborn.
You are extraordinary.
Caleb reached across the table and took her hand.
And I am grateful every day that you let me into your life.
You forced your way in, if I recall correctly.
Beatrice teased, but her eyes were soft.
Stood between me and Landry like you had a death wish.
I had a life wish.
Caleb corrected.
A wish to build a life with you.
Well, you got your wish.
Beatrice squeezed his hand.
And I got mine.
They finished their dinner in comfortable silence, then went outside to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and gold, the kind of sky that made you believe in new beginnings.
Do you ever think about the future?
Beatrice asked quietly.
About what comes next?
All the time.
Caleb pulled her closer.
I think about growing old with you, about watching this town grow, about the patients I will treat, and the lives we will save together.
Together.
Beatrice smiled.
I like the sound of that.
So do I.
They stood at the riverbank with the town behind them, the saloon warm and welcoming, the church standing sentinel. The water flowed past, carrying away the last remnants of winter ice, bringing in the promise of spring and summer and all the seasons to come. Beatrice leaned into Caleb, feeling his strength and his love, and she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them the same way they had faced Huxley Sutton. Together, equal, unafraid.
I love you, Caleb Carson.
I love you, Beatrice Carson.
And there, at the riverbank with the town behind them and the future ahead, they kissed as the sun set and the stars began to appear. Two people who had found each other in the darkest winter and chosen to build a life together in the light. That night, as they lay in bed with the window open and the cool spring air drifting in, Beatrice thought about all the things that had brought her to this moment. Her father's death, Huxley's threats, the brutal winter, the telegram that had arrived too late, and Caleb standing beside her through all of it, never wavering, never trying to take over, just being there when she needed him most.
I never thought I would marry.
She said quietly, into the darkness.
I thought I would run the saloon alone until I died.
What changed your mind?
You did.
Beatrice turned to face him, her hand resting on his chest.
You showed me I could have both. I could be strong and independent and still have someone to lean on. I could run my business and still have a partner.
You taught me the same thing.
Caleb stroked her hair gently.
I thought keeping my promise meant staying alone, never letting anyone get close. But you showed me that love does not break promises. It strengthens them.
They held each other in the quiet darkness. Two people who had learned that strength and love were not opposites, but complements. That you could be fierce and tender, independent and connected, strong and vulnerable all at once. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. Caleb tended to his patients. Beatrice ran her saloon, and together they built a life that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. The town began to heal from the long winter. The floods receded fully, leaving rich soil in their wake. Farmers began planting. The ranchers who had lost cattle started rebuilding their herds. The church held services every Sunday, and Reverend Clay always made a point to greet Caleb and Beatrice warmly, his eyes twinkling with quiet satisfaction. One morning, a writer came through with a newspaper from St. Paul. The front page carried a story about the arrest and trial of Huxley Sutton. The article detailed his crimes, the forged deeds, the bribes, the threats. It mentioned Beatrice by name, calling her a brave frontier woman who had refused to be intimidated. Caleb read the article aloud while Beatrice poured coffee, and when he finished, she just shook her head.
I was not brave. I was just too stubborn to quit.
That is what bravery is.
Caleb folded the newspaper and set it aside.
Doing what is right, even when you are terrified.
I was terrified.
Beatrice admitted.
Every single day. But I kept thinking about my father, about how he built this place with his own hands. I could not let Huxley take it.
And you did not. You saved it. You saved yourself. And you saved me too.
How did I save you?
You gave me a reason to stay. A reason to believe I could have more than just work and duty. You gave me a home.
Beatrice crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against his shoulder.
This is your home now. For as long as you want it.
Forever sounds about right.
They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the morning sun warm on their faces. Outside, the town was coming to life. The sound of hammers and saws echoed as people repaired winter damage. Children laughed and played in the street. A dog barked. Life went on, ordinary and beautiful. As the weeks passed, Beatrice and Caleb fell into a comfortable partnership. She managed the saloon with the same fierce competence she always had, and he ran his medical practice with quiet dedication. But they also made time for each other. They took walks along the river in the evenings, talking about their days, making plans for the future. They sat together on the porch of the saloon and watched the stars come out. They laughed and argued and made love and built a life together, one day at a time. One afternoon, Caleb came into the saloon with a thoughtful expression on his face.
I have been thinking.
That sounds dangerous.
Beatrice teased, but she set down the glass she was polishing and gave him her full attention.
What about? About expanding the practice. There are a lot of people in the surrounding settlements who have no access to a doctor. I thought maybe I could ride out once a week, see patients in different towns.
That is a good idea.
Beatrice nodded slowly.
But it would mean you would be gone for days at a time.
I know.
Caleb came closer, his eyes searching hers.
I would not do it if you did not want me to.
Of course you should do it.
Beatrice reached out and took his hand.
People need you. And I am not the kind of wife who keeps her husband on a leash.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
She squeezed his hand.
I trust you. And I am proud of you. Go save lives. Just come home to me.
Always.
He pulled her into a kiss, deep and grateful.
Always.
So Caleb began riding out to neighboring settlements, providing medical care to people who had none. He was gone for 2 or 3 days at a time, and Beatrice kept the saloon running smoothly in his absence. She missed him fiercely when he was gone, but she also felt proud of the work he was doing. And when he came home, dusty and tired and full of stories, she was there to welcome him back with open arms. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the river, Caleb turned to Beatrice with a serious expression.
I have something to tell you.
What is it?
I got a letter today from a hospital in St. Paul. They want me to come work for them. Full-time, good salary, modern facilities, everything a doctor could want.
Beatrice felt her heart sink, but she kept her face neutral.
What did you tell them?
I have not responded yet. I wanted to talk to you first.
Do you want to go?
No,
Caleb said without hesitation.
I do not. My life is here, with you, in this town, helping these people. I do not want a fancy hospital or a big salary. I just want this. Us.
Beatrice felt relief wash over her, warm and sweet.
Good. Because I do not want to move to St. Paul.
Neither do I.
Caleb grinned and pulled her close.
I am going to write them back and tell them no. This is where I belong.
This is where we both belong.
They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Beatrice felt a deep contentment settle over her, the kind of peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are supposed to be. The months rolled on, spring turning to summer, summer fading into autumn. The town grew and prospered. New families moved in. The church got a fresh coat of paint. The saloon stayed busy, and Caleb's practice thrived. Beatrice and Caleb settled into married life with an ease that surprised them both. They were partners in every sense of the word, supporting each other, challenging each other, loving each other fiercely. One crisp autumn morning, Beatrice woke to find Caleb already up, standing at the window looking out at the town. She slipped out of bed and came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist.
What are you thinking about?
How lucky I am.
Caleb turned and pulled her into his arms.
How different my life would have been if I had not met you.
You would have been fine. You are strong.
I would have survived, but I would not have lived. You taught me how to live again.
Beatrice looked up at him, her green eyes soft.
You did the same for me. I was so angry after my father died, so determined to prove I did not need anyone. But you showed me that needing someone is not weakness. It is strength.
We saved each other.
Yes. We did.
They stood together in the morning light, wrapped in each other's arms. Two people who had found love in the most unlikely place and built a life that was richer and fuller than either of them had ever imagined. Outside, the town was waking up. Smoke rose from chimneys. The smell of bread baking drifted on the air. Children ran laughing down the street. And in the saloon above the bar, Beatrice and Caleb held each other and knew that whatever the future brought, they would face it together. Strong, equal, unafraid, and deeply, enduringly in love. That autumn, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. She told Caleb one evening after the saloon had closed, when they were alone in their room upstairs. He stared at her for a long moment, his face going through a dozen different emotions. And then, he swept her into his arms and held her so tight she could barely breathe.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Beatrice laughed, tears streaming down her face.
I have been sick every morning for 2 weeks, and I know my own body.
We are going to have a baby.
Caleb said it like he was testing the words, like he could not quite believe them.
A baby.
Are you happy?
Happy does not even begin to cover it.
He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her gently.
You have given me everything. A home, a purpose, and now a child.
We made this together.
Beatrice reminded him.
This is ours.
The news spread through the town quickly, as news always did in small settlements. Congratulations poured in from all sides. The women brought gifts and advice. The men clapped Caleb on the back and teased him about sleepless nights. Reverend Clay stopped by to offer his blessings, his eyes misty with joy. Even the sheriff, gruff and practical as always, smiled when he heard and told Beatrice she was going to make a fine mother. As winter approached again, Beatrice continued running the saloon with her usual determination, though Caleb insisted she take more breaks and not lift anything heavy. She rolled her eyes at his hovering, but secretly loved it. She had never had anyone worry about her like this, and it felt good to be cared for. One snowy afternoon, a stranger rode into town. He was a tall man with a weathered face and cold eyes, and he asked for Caleb by name. Beatrice felt a prickle of unease when she saw him, but she directed him to the medical office. Caleb came out a few minutes later, his face pale.
That was someone from my past.
He said quietly.
From before I came here.
What did he want?
He wanted me to know that someone I used to know died last week. A woman I loved once, before I made my promise at the graveside. She married someone else after I left, had a family, lived a good life. But she is gone now.
Beatrice reached for his hand.
I am sorry.
So am I.
Caleb squeezed her hand.
But it also reminded me how grateful I am for you, for this life. I could have stayed trapped in the past, but you pulled me into the present, into the future.
We pulled each other.
Beatrice said firmly.
That is how this works.
That night, they held each other close, feeling the baby move between them. A small flutter of life and promise. The past was the past. The future was theirs to build. Winter settled in hard, but this year it felt different. The town was prepared. There was plenty of firewood stacked, plenty of food stored, and the community pulled together to make sure no one went without. Caleb made his rounds to check on the elderly and the sick, and Beatrice kept the saloon open as a gathering place where people could come in from the cold and share a hot meal and good company. One evening, as a blizzard howled outside, a young couple stumbled into the saloon half frozen. They were travelers who had been caught in the storm, and they were desperate for shelter. Beatrice took them in without hesitation, gave them blankets and hot coffee, and Caleb checked them over for frostbite. The young woman was shaking so hard she could barely hold her cup.
You are safe now.
Beatrice told her gently.
Stay as long as you need.
The young woman looked up at her with tears in her eyes. She said thank you over and over, and Beatrice just smiled and squeezed her shoulder. Later, after the couple had been fed and settled in a warm corner to sleep, Caleb came up behind Beatrice and wrapped his arms around her, resting his hands on her growing belly.
You have the biggest heart of anyone I have ever met.
I just did what anyone would do.
No.
Caleb kissed her temple.
Most people would have turned them away, but you never do. You take in strays like me, and strangers in storms, and anyone who needs help.
Because I know what it is like to need help and not have it.
Beatrice leaned back against him.
After my father died, people acted like I was invisible. Like I did not matter. I swore I would never make anyone feel that way.
You are extraordinary.
The winter passed slowly, but spring came eventually as it always did. The ice on the river broke up and flowed away. The snow melted. Green shoots appeared in the fields. And Beatrice grew rounder and slower, her belly swelling with the baby that would arrive in early summer. Caleb fussed over her constantly, making sure she ate enough and rested enough and did not work too hard. Beatrice tolerated his hovering with good humor, though she drew the line when he tried to forbid her from going downstairs to the saloon.
I am pregnant, not dying.
She told him firmly.
I am still running this place.
At least let me carry things for you.
Fine. You can carry things. But I am still making decisions.
I would never dream of taking that away from you.
Caleb grinned and kissed her forehead.
You are still the boss.
Do not you forget it.
In late May, Beatrice went into labor. It was a long and difficult birth, and Caleb stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and encouraging her, and doing everything he could to help. When the baby finally came, a healthy girl with a strong cry and a full head of dark hair, Caleb placed her in Beatrice's arms, and both of them wept.
She is perfect.
Beatrice whispered, staring down at the tiny face.
Look at her.
She is perfect, because she is yours.
Caleb kissed Beatrice's damp forehead.
Ours.
Ours.
They named her Grace, after the grandmother Caleb had loved and lost, and she became the center of their world. The saloon adjusted to having a baby upstairs. Customers tiptoed and spoke in softer voices when Grace was sleeping. The women of the town brought endless gifts and advice, and Caleb, who had delivered dozens of babies in his career, turned out to be a surprisingly nervous and doting father.
Is she breathing?
He would ask in the middle of the night, leaning over the cradle.
Yes, she is breathing. Go back to sleep.
Are you sure?
Caleb, I can hear her. She is fine.
Maybe I should just check.
If you wake her up, you are the one getting up with her.
Beatrice muttered, but she was smiling. Watching Caleb with their daughter filled her with a love so fierce it took her breath away. As Grace grew from a newborn into a chubby, smiling baby, Beatrice and Caleb settled into the rhythm of parenthood. It was exhausting and overwhelming, and the most beautiful thing either of them had ever done. They took turns walking the floor with her when she cried. They marveled over every milestone, every smile, every tiny accomplishment, and they loved each other even more deeply, bound together not just by their own love, but by the love they both had for their daughter. One warm summer evening, when Grace was 6 months old, Beatrice and Caleb sat on the porch of the saloon, watching the sunset. Grace was asleep in Caleb's arms, her tiny fist curled against his chest. Beatrice leaned against Caleb's shoulder and sighed contentedly.
Do you ever think about how different things could have been?
She asked quietly.
If I had given in to Huxley. If you had never come to Coyote Gulch.
All the time.
Caleb said.
And every time I do, I am grateful for the choices we made, for the courage you had to stand up to him, for the promise that brought me here.
I am grateful too.
Beatrice looked up at him, her green eyes shining.
For all of it. The hard parts and the good parts. Because it all led to this. To us. To her.
To home.
Caleb kissed the top of her head.
To family.
To love.
They sat together in the fading light, 3 people who had become one family. The river flowed past, steady and eternal. The town behind them buzzed with life, and in that moment, Beatrice knew with absolute certainty that she had everything she had ever wanted, and some things she had never dared to dream of. She had her saloon, her independence, her strength. And she had Caleb and Grace, a family built on love and respect and partnership. She had proven she could run the saloon alone, but she had also learned that choosing to share her life did not make her weak. It made her stronger. Caleb had kept his promise at the graveside, but he had also learned that honoring the past did not mean living in it forever. He had found a new purpose, a new love, a new promise to keep. And together, they had built something that would last. A home, a family, a future. The stars began to appear overhead, bright and clear in the darkening sky. Grace stirred and made a small sound, and Caleb adjusted her gently in his arms. Beatrice reached over and touched her daughter's soft cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin, the steady rhythm of her breathing.
I love you,
she said softly, looking at Caleb.
I love you too.
He smiled.
Both of you. Forever.
Forever.
And there, on the porch of the saloon in Coyote Gulch, with the river flowing and the stars shining, and their daughter sleeping peacefully between them, Beatrice and Caleb held each other and knew that they had found something rare and precious. They had found home. The years that followed were full of hard work and joy. Grace grew into a bright, curious child who loved to follow her father on his rounds and help her mother in the saloon. She had Beatrice's green eyes and stubborn streak, and Caleb's steady calm and gentle heart. The town grew around them, new buildings going up, new families arriving. The railroad finally came through, connecting Coyote Gulch to the wider world. But through all the changes, the saloon remained the heart of the community, and Beatrice and Caleb remained the couple everyone looked up to. They had their struggles, of course. There were lean years when the crops failed and money was tight. There were times when they argued, when Beatrice's quick temper clashed with Caleb's quiet intensity. But they always worked through it, always came back to each other, always remembered what they had fought for and what they had built together. One evening, in late autumn, when Grace was 7 years old, a telegram arrived at the saloon. Beatrice opened it and read it twice, her face going pale.
Caleb,
She called, her voice shaking.
you need to see this.
Caleb came over immediately, wiping his hands on a towel. He took the telegram and read it, his expression darkening.
They found him.
Yes. In California. He has been living under a false name.
And they are bringing him back to stand trial.
Beatrice nodded, her hands trembling slightly. The telegram was about Huxley Sutton, who had fled west after his crimes were exposed. For years, he had evaded justice, but finally a marshal had tracked him down and arrested him. He was being brought back to Minnesota to face charges.
I thought this was over.
Beatrice said quietly.
I thought we were done with him.
We are.
Caleb put his arm around her shoulders.
This is just the law catching up. We do not have to do anything.
They will want me to testify.
Maybe. But you do not have to if you do not want to.
I want to.
Beatrice looked up at him, her jaw set.
I want to look him in the eye and tell the truth. I want him to know that he did not win. That he did not break me.
Then, I will be right there with you.
2 months later, Beatrice and Caleb traveled to St. Paul for the trial. Grace stayed with friends in Coyote Gulch, and Beatrice hated leaving her, but knew it was necessary. The trial lasted 3 days. Beatrice testified clearly and calmly, recounting everything Huxley had done. How he had tried to steal her property. How he had forged documents and bribed officials and threatened her. Caleb testified as well, describing the violence he had witnessed and the injuries he had treated. Huxley sat at the defense table looking older and smaller than Beatrice remembered, his eyes flat and empty. When the verdict came back guilty, Beatrice felt a wave of relief so strong it left her dizzy. Justice had been done. The past was finally, truly over. On the train ride home, Caleb held her hand and looked out the window at the passing landscape.
How do you feel?
Free.
Beatrice said simply.
Like I can finally let go of all that anger I have been carrying.
You were so strong in there.
I had to be. For Grace. For us. For everyone he tried to hurt.
I am proud of you.
Beatrice leaned her head on his shoulder.
I could not have done any of this without you. You know that, right?
Yes, you could have. You are the strongest person I know. But I am glad you did not have to do it alone.
So am I.
They arrived back in Coyote Gulch to find the whole town waiting at the station to welcome them home. Grace ran to them and threw herself into Beatrice's arms, and Beatrice held her tight and breathed in the sweet smell of her hair.
I missed you so much.
She whispered. Grace pulled back and looked at her mother seriously. She said, "Did you win?" And Beatrice smiled.
Yes, sweetheart. We won.
That night, after Grace was asleep and the saloon was quiet, Beatrice and Caleb stood at the window, looking out at the town. The river flowed past in the moonlight, steady and eternal.
Do you ever think about what comes next?
Caleb asked.
After all this,
I think about it all the time.
Beatrice turned to face him.
I think about Grace growing up, about getting old together, about all the years we still have ahead of us.
I want to spend every single one of them with you.
Good. Because you are stuck with me.
Caleb laughed and pulled her close.
There is nowhere else I would rather be.
They stood together in the darkness, wrapped in each other's arms, and Beatrice felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. The fight was over. The danger was past. And the future stretched out before them, full of possibility and promise. She had her family. She had her home. She had her love. And that was everything.